So this is a really great question. Let me use an analogy to explain how radiotherapy works with these different kinds of radiations. Let's assume that this staple remover is a tumor and is somewhere in my torso. Now, the standard practice, if I'm using photons, is to have a radiation field that is shaped like the staple remover from each different direction. So if it's in my body, I'll have multiple beams coming from outside my body and crisscrossing over the staple remover. So from each direction, it maps out the shape of the staple remover, and so that a massive dose is given to the tumor, where only a smaller dose is given to the rest of the body. So that the tissue that's around the tumor has a survivable dose, but the tumor is given a lethal dose. And that's how radiotherapy works. That's how we're able to cure cancer and do that with radiation, which we know at high doses can cause cancer, which is what we're doing to the tumors, to give it a high dose, but not a high dose enough that you would necessarily cause cancer in the cancer to literally kill the cancer. That's the point. Now, if you're using heavy ions like alphas or protons or something like that, you kind of do the same thing, except for when you're using ions, the nuclei of atoms, and you're using those as the radiation instead of photons, they actually do energy deposition a little bit differently. With photons, it exponentially attenuates so that you use high energy photons so that there's not a whole lot of attenuation. That way you're not getting a really large entrance dose and a small exit dose. It's kind of the same so that you're taking advantage of the averaging effect. But when it comes to those nuclei, they have what's called a Bragg peak. So at the end of their range, they get a really big spike in energy deposition, so that spike is measured so that occurs right at the tumor. So you get a smaller energy deposition until you hit the tumor, and then it gives a big, huge dose. And so it's going to be a little bit different depending on which ion you're using. It's a little bit different with protons versus alphas versus carbon or something like that. And it just comes down to making those calculations, because it can be pretty sophisticated, especially if you're going through bone. So great question. I hope that answered it properly. Thanks for asking. Have a good day.